All right, perfect. Thank you. And welcome to our another lunch webinar. So thank you for joining us today. Maybe some of you are new this time around, but we are trying to get, a cadence of once a month conversation. These are really intended to be just open conversation about various topics that we pick up from our business at Lindora. Here today, we're going to talk about traveling and staying compliant, which a lot of us probably have gone through this past couple months because we're travelers. And also, we are also getting ready for the school year. So if you guys have kids and families and whatnot, you might be just winding down on that. Now, let me make sure that I know how to control my slides here. On the call today, we have, of course, myself. I am the Chief Medical Officer for LWI, which is basically Lindora. We are a medical weight loss clinic. We also offer services for metabolic health. And I'm joined here by Colleen Lewis, who is the CEO of LWI. And, every month we basically get together. This is kind of like a fireside chat almost. And I invite her to chime in and give us her experience as well as sort of the testimonial / CEO of the company as well. Today's agenda, really straightforward. I just want to talk about traveling and staying compliant. The question of, is this even possible, right? I see a lot of clients, a lot of patients in my business, and this is one of the key topics on why someone actually have a disruption in their weight management journey. Because I'm traveling, everything has to come to a stop. Because I'm no longer at home, and this is almost kind of, to me, an excuse to get out of their normal everyday kind of cycle of things. So I want to just give you guys a perspective on what you can do to stay compliant, and maybe next year don't use it as an excuse. Embrace it. You are on a journey to living better and healthier, so may as well make it 365 days a year. Now, some fun facts before we start. We know that people travel, and 82% of US American adults actually travel in the summer months. We know that, and that's over 200 million people that we're talking about. And then on the other side of things, we know that 75% of our US American adults are overweight and obese. So if you put these two circle pies together, likely there is some overlap. And I am sure that most of you who are traveling may also be overweight and struggling with weight loss, and probably in some kind of program or whatnot. So I do feel like we are probably talking to a lot of folks out there, and this is probably really relatable. It's an issue. Now, like I said, people do tell me, as a provider, because we have a weight loss program, one of the most common excuses for the summer months is, all right, hold all my membership, hold my weight loss, don't charge me for anything because everything is coming to a halt because I'm going to Europe or whatever location that they're at. Because of this fear of, hey, if I'm on a diet, then I'm likely losing out on some things when I am traveling. So I want you to get out of that mindset, to not even relate FOMO and traveling and all the great foods that you may be missing out, because it's all about the mindset when it comes to doing what you enjoy doing, and embrace it at every level. So some of the quick thoughts, and I will let Colleen actually talk about this because she is the queen of traveling. I believe that in the past month, how many places have you gone to?
Whoa, it's easier to say I've been home for 36 hours.
And she's traveled like all corners of the nation. And if anything, I think she probably has great tips to share with us. But my general tips here on this slide comes down to this. Look, we will have cravings. We will have this nostalgic feeling of, all right, this location equates to these types of food. And we all have those kind of baseline knowledge. And craving is part of human nature. So therefore, we will have the urges and the desires that would drive our behavior ultimately in what we end up doing. So it's either we eat a lot or we eat the wrong things, and we don't choose to exercise. But other things that we should think about besides cravings would be, hey, look, we can embrace and try everything as long as we understand that in human physiology, we truly don't need to eat a big portion of anything to subdue and kind of calm down our cravings and urges and desires. So there is something called the 3-bite rule, where you literally need 3 bites to serve that purpose of the cravings and urges. And ultimately sharing your food, which seems so trivial and so easy. And nowadays, this is what I do with my husband. Everywhere we go, we share an entree of some sort. which would allow us to actually try a little bit more of everything else. So these are just fun tips. Obviously, some of you or most of you probably already kind of practice it as it is, but sometimes you just need a reminder that, these are real things and actually does work. Colleen talked about mindless eating before the presentation even started. We actually talked about, some of the fun slides on this presentation. And mindless eating is a real thing. Now, Colleen, tell me, what do you know of this whole mindfulness and how that plays a role in the way we control ourselves when we travel, considering you travel all the time?
Yeah. So I actually said before we got on the webinar with everybody that I've been traveling really this is my 4th week of not being home. And it really came down to, I had to set my mindset to stay on track and to like not give myself the excuse to just eat or get pizza because it's easy or, something else. The first 2 weeks that I was away, my husband and I were actually on an Alaskan cruise. And if you've ever taken a cruise, there's food everywhere around the clock. And typically, I'm a sugar addict, right? So I love, 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 love sugar in all of its forms. Yes, in sweets and in desserts, but also in breads and pastas and all of those things. And so I had just given myself this mindset of, I'm going to make good choices while I'm traveling. And I think it's really the first time that I've held myself accountable to that mindset. But what I would say is there were plenty of choices that I was able to make that allowed me to stay on track. There was a ton of fresh fish. Of course, we were in Alaska, so there was salmon almost daily. There was Alaskan king crab legs. There was other fish. And once I got through the first day of just having the whole smorgasbord available to me, it was really easy to stay very committed.
For sure. And I remember you taking pictures and showing me, all the various offerings there as well. And truly, Colleen has actually hit like most of these items on the slide here, when it comes down to mindfulness. Number one,
Absolutely.
environment, right? You chose to go to a cruise, so you got to accept that there will be all you can eat. But you got to prep yourself, right? Knowing where you're going to be allows you to prep beforehand. Comfort eating versus functional eating. She already knows that her comfort food is sweets. So the fact that she is aware of this very fact could actually help her control when the time comes for behavior and action, right? Distraction is key. I don't know if you guys know, like places where there are a lot of like colors and light and trinkets and decorations oftentimes serves as a purpose to distract you from what you're actually eating. So it could actually change the way you order. Then people do end up over ordering because they can't focus on what they're really doing.
Dr. Lee, I don't know if you know this, but Burger King is like red and orange inside because for that exact reason. McDonald's are often green inside for that exact reason.
Right. It's that mood. It's trying to trigger a certain level of mood and relationship between you and food. Distraction is definitely one of those things that is super important, even in your home, right? How your dining room is set up, how your kitchen is, and where you eat and whatnot. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Peer pressure is really my weakness. If I have a friend eating a lot, I will likely eat a lot with that friend. So happy hour for me is a huge weakness. I almost have to like control myself on not going to so many happy hours because everyone's hyped up in their emotions. Everyone's happy to see each other. It's end of work. Of course, there's alcohol involved. Therefore, it is super important when it comes to that mindfulness and eating. Boredom is also one of those things, and I'm sure most of you in the audience probably have experienced that, where you're home, you're working, and you literally look around because you're kind of bored with the status quo. Where do you look? You look in the kitchen. What do? You walk to the fridge and you open it for the 12th time. For some reason, you expect something different on the 12th time that you open it, when in reality, you really just are finding something to do and something to munch on. And some people have the weird kind of addiction of bringing something up to the mouth. For me, it's sipping on warm liquids. It's something I have to do. So I find myself leaving my office just to go to the kitchen at my office, just to grab something warm to sip on. So this could be food. This could be, sodas, whatever it is. And of course, eating schedules, two-edged sword. Having an eating schedule is great if you're trying to tell yourself, all right, this is time to eat, and you're supposed to eat your proteins and not, get hungry or get yourself in the whole hunger mode. However, some people are so strict on their eating schedule where even though they're not hungry, they feel the need to have to put something in their system because they fear on getting super hungry late hours in the night, for example. So then you're kind of force feeding yourself because of the fact that you have this eating schedule. So be mindful of that. See if you personally actually experience any of these kind of like byproduct of rules here for mindful eating or mindfulness.
Dr. Lee, before I joined the team at Lindora and went on the Lindora program, I had multiples of these. So people might have multiples of them, right? Like
Mhm.
I ate for comfort versus function. I ate for boredom. And if you go back to that slide, there were like one or two others. I ate out of boredom. I ate out of eating schedules. If I had young children and we were all eating dinner, I would eat with them even if I wasn't hungry. So I think that probably a lot of us fall into multiples of these categories.
For sure. And as part of our counseling, our business and our clinics, it's so important for us to be able to connect with our clients at every level, and that relates to them, in their homes and whatnot. So super important to think about all those things. Now, is dieting a seasonal thing? I like to ask the audience, people can reply on the chat. But it's funny because we always work off seasonality when it comes to marketing. Colleen knows, we talk about, all right, when do people actually think about the need to diet, right? And we always think about January, right? January is our classic New Year's resolution months. But in reality, most people actually start dieting really in the summer months, in these months where in that country where the summer months are the warmer months, right? And here are the reasons why. Very obvious. It almost seems like no duh, right? And better weather, you're more active, you're wearing shorts or tank tops, and you're now being aware. You're aware of what you're showing to the world. Things are not fitting the way it used to fit. And so that also triggers you into doing something a little bit different. And a lot of weddings and outings and parties are typically in the summer months. So therefore, it just causes this like trigger for us to think about, all right, what's important for us. But otherwise, we are also seeing a change, a shift in dieting behaviors because of the advent of this very powerful medication called GLP-1s. We are now seeing people dieting throughout the year just to keep up with the weight loss. And so it's very interesting on how different medications in the industry could actually change the trajectory of how people behave. All right, going on a trip. You've probably gone on a trip already. I mean, we're talking about late August now, but maybe something you want to think about for the winter months or the fall months, right? How do you lose weight while traveling? And I think Colleen would probably be able to answer a lot of these as well from her personal testimonials. But the three main bucket of things, and there are more. I'm just using three buckets because we have limited time. These are the big like components to how we can actually, what we should think about when it comes to implementing some kind of thought process when it comes to traveling: locations, activities, and water loss. Now I'm going to go a little bit deeper on each of these items. And so let's start off with locations and intentions. Now, I'm not sure about you, but back in the day when I used to travel in my 20s or 30s, I tend to just go to places where it's hot with lots of cheap food and I lay around, right? Now, as an older female that I am, and weight loss is not as easy, I am more mindful about more intentional traveling. Meaning, if I go somewhere, there should be some kind of activities that's kind of built in, or something that I can sign up along with staying 5 days somewhere. And so some of these things may relate to you. It might make sense. For me, it's retreats. And I'm sure Colleen knows some of these places because we've been talking about, traveling plans for the next coming year. I'm a big fan of yoga retreats, meaning like you do 3 sessions of yoga in a day, and it's all paid for, inclusive, one price kind of deal. It makes me feel better about going on that trip because now there's some motivation or alternative motivation for me to do something active. There are trips that are very exercise specific, meaning, specific trip that is known for their hiking trails or horseback riding or ATV riding. So these are things that you may want to think about in your next trip planning because you want to incorporate something that's kind of embedded within your trip. And of course, cold versus hot weather. Cold weather, I mean, it's pretty obvious. You're likely going to stay inside versus somewhere hot where you are going to be out and about and increasing the metabolism. What's interesting and that I do want to mention is high altitude. There are actual clinical trials and papers out there, and there's a reference down here that you see on my slide here, which you can read more about. If you do live in a higher altitude area, besides the fact that the scale actually gives you a lighter weight than usual, like in Colorado, it's well known. If you weigh yourself in Colorado versus somewhere in Texas, you are going to be a little bit lighter in Colorado. Same body, same person, because of the altitude. But did you also know that physiologically, it actually affects our levels of leptin, which is a hormone that tells us when we're full and satisfied. And it also boosts our metabolism. So you can read more about that on that paper. Colleen, do you have any suggestions on this very specific component to traveling?
It's interesting. I don't necessarily schedule my travel around activity. I just schedule it around like places that we want to go. For example, for everyone on the call, I'm in New York City right now because I have two young adult children in their 20s and they both live in New York City. I currently split my time between Southern California and Florida. And what you cannot get in either of those places is an amazing slice of New York style pizza. And I haven't had a slice of pizza yet, and I've been here for, 2 days. But for me, it's really around I said it before, it's about staying mindful and having a mindset. I will mention, I said to Amy before we got on the call, because I'm in New York City and there's much more walking in New York City than in Southern California or the West Coast of Florida, it was super easy. I mean, yesterday, without trying, I walked 14,000 steps. And it made me take a moment to pause to say, I have to look for the moments in my normal days to actually take a walk around the block or to get those footsteps in, because it was super easy to do it yesterday.
Yeah, and it's totally doable, right? But I think when we are stuck in our office, in corporate, for example, Colleen and I, when we're in our office space, we just sit there in the corner and we pound away with meetings and whatnot. And probably on average, our daily steps could be 2,000, 3,000 steps if we don't even if we're not even aware of that. So 14,000 steps seems a lot more, but did you know the average recommended steps is at least 10,000 steps? At least. I'm not saying, 10,000 to 15,000. I'm saying it's at least 10,000 steps, which is equivalent to about 3 miles in distance. And so that's something you want to, even at least if you want to start somewhere, start with the steps. All right, next component. Let's talk about activities. This is probably a little deeper dive into, a resort that has activities in general, but there are other things that actually helps you when it comes to boosting your metabolism or continuing on your journey of weight loss. I'm a big fan of places with excursions. So if they have some like menu of things that are kind of offering from the resort, it likely will attract me because it tells me that maybe perhaps the culture of that company is all about wellness and whatnot. Med spa services. I don't know about you. I'm a big fan of overpaying for my massages. And just having, a couple hours of just me time as well is key. Now, different types of massages actually has different indicated health benefits. For example, you got your aroma, you got your, deep tissue. Those are great for what it is, right? It's what we call hoity-toity massages, is what my husband would say. But, there's something called lymphatic drainage, right? And there are specifically sports massages that really go deep into working out the sore muscle groups that you may have had because of the excursions. But some of the services also comes down to like radio frequency. They're more of the med spa services or aesthetic services that could actually help you tighten up or agitate the fat cells while you're on the trip to really continue on to help you continue on with your weight loss journey. So if you're already like losing weight beforehand, it could be very beneficial to add on one of these services while you're out and about as well. And I know recently Colleen is a big fan of red light therapy as well, which is usually found in a lot of these so-called kind of med spa focused resorts too. And so that's something to look into when you are traveling next. And of course, resort gyms. I don't know if any one of you have gone to any different like hotels where they actually have yoga mats in the room. And did you know that most of these gyms actually allow you to rent shoes if you didn't bring yours? So these are all great add-ons and special services that some of these resorts do offer. And you want to think about this because truly you're stuck there for 4 to 6 days. So you do have the time to incorporate a little bit of, your exercise and activities as well. Colleen, have you come across any resorts that kind of like wowed you or surprised you?
Hmm. You know, a destination, like a wellness destination that I've gone to that is a big wow is Miraval in Arizona. Now everything that you do at that place is focused on a wellness experience. It's not necessarily a weight loss experience, but it's a wellness experience. And I think they're a really big wow. I haven't been there in a long time, and I'd love to get back. But honestly, even as I'm just traveling for business, not even a resort gym, almost every hotel now, and I'm a Marriott girl because I like to get my points and convert them into Ritz-Carlton vacations. But even just your local Marriott or, in town Marriott when you're traveling has a gym and you can make good use of it. I'm actually a big fan of spa services. And, Dr. Lee mentioned that I've recently been really turned on by red light therapy, and I am. And also for the last, I'll call it 8 months, I've been getting lymphatic drainage massage because I've been on my own weight loss journey. So just helping my body, clear through all of the excess things that it needs to clear through. I'm a huge fan of lymphatic drainage massage.
Of course, at a premium cost. But you get all that locally as well. But something to think about. I'm a big fan. And the third component comes down to water loss and fluctuation. Truly, for those who actually lose weight on their trip, the first few pounds, it's just movement of water, which is basically pretty standard when it comes to weight loss in general. Your body has to start basically move things around with electrolytes and water and things that it wasn't eating, that you weren't eating before, could actually cause you to pee out, or what we call diuresis, basically just natural water loss. And so a lot of times these spa services could actually do that for you. So you can even use it as almost like a jump start to a real program when you return home. Dehydration is also something that obviously we don't want you to undergo, but it does happen when you travel. We just lose sight of how much water we're supposed to drink, and there's not enough free water in the hotel room, so now you're not drinking as much. So these are all just, natural progression of why you would have fluctuation in your water or volume change. And of course, when you go travel, a lot of times you are eating the local foods, the organic foods, the produce, their lean proteins and whatnot, without all the additives of your everyday typical grocery foods that you get, at home. Which actually does help you move water around as well. So some people do feel a little bit more vibrant, a little more refreshed after they travel for that very reason, because of the local foods that you are eating. And a lot of countries actually don't allow a lot of processed ingredients into their country compared to the United States, which is a whole different conversation in itself. But it is a fun fact that we do use a lot of preservatives, color additives, emulsifiers, and food texturizers in United States versus every other country. All right, just a little recap on types of diets out there. A lot of people are on all types of diets, but when it comes down to the standard of what types of diets are out there, we oftentimes, in our business, think about the different ranges of caloric intake, which is tied into the different modalities or different names of diets that you may come across. The most aggressive diet is what we call the very low calorie diet, which is anything that you eat on a daily basis of less than 1,000 calories. Truly, a normal human nutrition for daily intake should hover around 1,200 to 2,000 calories minimally. But when you eat somewhere anything under 1,000, that actually becomes very restrictive. And this is, a regimen that we often practice at Lindora in our business, because you do have to be medically monitored. So if you are doing something very similar where you're on some kind of fast or cleanse, it is recommended that you are under the guidance of some kind of medical provider or practitioner, because you do have potential side effects of that. We also practice what we call a low calorie or LCD diet, which is basically keeping you between 1100 to 1500 calories by the use of lean proteins, complex carbs, and vitamins as well. So a lot of people are in this sort of this type of diet in general, and there are many different names for this type of diets. You can call it ketogenic, you can call it low carb, whatever it is. It's a caloric intake. It ranges in between 1100 to 1500. Then that is kind of like where you are. Now we have modified low caloric diets as well, which is MLCD. This is when someone just cuts out, like one component or 500 calories deficit a day, which is really common. People do lose weight with that, but it's not as fast as compared to someone on a very low calorie diet. These are some of the common names that you see in the industry of, what kind of diets people are on. But at the end of the day, it's all about your macronutrients and micronutrients. How many calories are you actually eating on a daily basis? What kind of vitamins and minerals you're taking in as well. So there is some commonality, and this is how I kind of bank everything up. Now, when you're traveling, some of the things that you can do, obviously you might need tools, right? Some of the tools that I personally really like is bringing my little journal around. Colleen, I don't know if you are a journal person. I always see you writing something on a piece of paper, but that's a form of journaling. I have my like Bible journal, meaning if I lose this book, as well as my cell phone, I may as just die. Like, I write everything down, any like appointments, thoughts, ideas that pop into my mind, because I am a functional ADD person. So everything goes in this book, and it's no different for someone who can actually use journaling as a real tool set to help them stay compliant while they're traveling. These are the many different types of journaling. And it's, I actually just Google, journaling, and all these different behavioral approach goes along with journaling. Food journaling is something that we talk about in our business all the time, but there are other reasons why someone would write things down: for gratitude, bullet journaling, therapeutic, reflective. It's all a lot that goes along with, kind of mental health. And so I think we should all kind of be open and embrace it. It could involve an actual piece of paper, a book, or of course, a use of an app. Colleen, do you have any comments on that? What do you do to keep yourself in
I
line?
use my cell phone to journal it. And honestly, it keeps me really honest, because sometimes you just, back to like what reasons we eat, maybe there's mindlessness, or, if on occasion I allow myself to have 3 bites of a dessert because now I won't eat a full one. I didn't know that 3-bite rule though, Amy. That was interesting to hear. Like it allows me to keep track, because I won't remember tomorrow what I ate today. But if I have it written down, and I always have my cell phone on me, 100%. So if I keep it in my cell phone, then it's easy access and no excuses.
Exactly. A little bit more about food journaling. This is what we teach in our business. Again, it could be a book, it could be on your phone or on your app, but really the intention here for food journaling is not just to, waste time. I think it's very intentional. It's very helpful for those who need the actual biofeedback of writing something down, reading it, and digesting it in the brain as well, of eating habits, patterns, when they eat, why they eat, and what they eat, of course, actually becomes really apparent, because you're actually now visualizing exactly the kind of pattern of what you're doing on a daily basis. Positive reinforcement on feedback and behavior is super important. Sometimes just knowing that if you acted this way on a Tuesday and then you had a 2-pound weight loss, then the likelihood of you doing the same thing that you did on Tuesday on a Friday makes total sense. People need that reminder, and that constant feedback is super important when it comes to someone counting calories, going through a restriction diet, because truly no one remembers, just from the top of their head, of what they actually ate in details the day before. And oftentimes we like to underestimate food intake and overestimate activities. And that's a real fact. There are clinical trials out there that people do lie. and in our business, we see it all the time. People don't do it out of, being a bad person. It's just the way we process things, right? We often underestimate things when it comes to caloric intake. And creating mindfulness also allows you to take action to your behavior. So meaning, hey, look, I'm having a bad day, and today I had a big, huge piece of pizza in New York. You write that down, but then it allows you that little space of, well, what are you going to do about it? Right. And it becomes really second nature, I think, when it comes to journaling and behavioral change, because if you see it often enough and you still don't change your behavior, then it really tells you what type of person you are. And that allows you to reflect on, all right, what am I going to do next time? Because I'm sounding a little pathological, a little crazy. And so definitely look into that if you haven't done already. And I'm sure some of you in the audience probably have already started this already. And self-awareness on how and why is super important when it comes to food journaling. And of course, just being able to show time and schedules, what you do on a daily basis, when you drink your water, when you go to bed, actually becomes really super helpful.
You know, for me, I struggle with getting my water in because I like Diet Coke and I think that that should be my hydrator, but it doesn't work that way. But I don't drink alcohol with rare exception. And so for me, being able to keep track of the water I'm taking compared to the Diet Coke I'm taking in is important. And I think it's something like I need to drink 3 glasses of water for every can of Diet Coke that I drink. So that's in and of itself motivation to limit the amount of Diet Coke that I'm putting in my body, but I wouldn't know if I wasn't tracking it.
Yep. It's funny, you made it kind of like a confession. So here's my confession.
Oh my God, Amy. Here we go.
Hey, look, we all have dirty secrets. It's just a matter of when we want to talk about it. I love the airports. I love the airport because I feel safe. I feel safe because no one's judging me, because the environment is setting me up for failure, and I embrace it, right? But I don't do it all the time. I don't travel that much, and at the end of the day, I kind of see it as a treat. My husband oftentimes laugh at me because he's like, "You love like layaways, like." When there is a stop somewhere for hours on end, I'm that girl. I don't mind. I can sit at the airport and people watch and buy my overpriced martini, and that's kind of like my de-stressing time. But truly, when you actually look around the airport, the environment is a setup for failure. One, two, you are on the go. I mean, most people are rushing from places to places and they're stressed out. They're making sure that they got their things checked in. You got to go through TSA, and you're just nervous about not getting through for whatever reason. And it heightens your cortisol level, your stress hormones high. And guess what? With high stress hormone, we behave really funny in a way, in a sense where we allow ourselves to damper down the stress by doing what we know best, which is oftentimes eating things packed with sugars, packed with oils, and whatnot, with fried things. This is where people behave poorly, really, at the airport. And if you're the type of person who has access to a lounge, even worse, because now we're talking about all you can eat of whatever you want, right? So it's a real fact. It's not like I'm a perfect person. I find myself buying candy, getting fast food at the airport for the various reasons, but I am very mindful of that. So I would say out of 5 times, I do all these things, maybe 2 times out of 5. And this is my confession. Thank you for your Diet Coke reference. Now, all you can eat scenarios. I think this is what most people get in trouble with when they travel. A lot of times when we, sign on to some kind of package or tour deal or whatever else, it comes with all you can eat because it's so easy just to pay one price and not have to think. And unfortunately, we also end up there not thinking, and we just kind of like eat whatever is in front of us. The most common all you can eat scenarios really comes down to, like I mentioned, airport lounges. You paid for it, so you may as well use it, right? Cruise ships, with Colleen, we went back and forth, and it just cracks me up because the thing about cruise ship is people fight to get in line to those like pizza times, whatever it is. And I've heard of these stories like more often than not. So now I feel like it gives me the right to make fun of people who stand in line for pizza on the cruise ship. And then of course events and weddings.
Amy, before you move off of the cruise ships, here's what was interesting for me. In the morning, the line that was making omelets was short. And so I'd get a high protein omelet and I would get my food quickly. But the line that was making French toast and waffles and pancakes was enormous. At lunchtime, I would typically have a salad with a protein, and the line for the salads, there was never a wait. And it was like make your own custom salads, which is great for me because I'm super picky. But I never had to wait because I was making those choices.
Yep. And it's totally true. Totally true. You can go to any like regular buffet bars, all you can eat places. It's the same kind of pattern, right? And the question is, why can't people think about better options there? And I really think that it's the types of people where one, you're not prepared, you just show up and you don't have kind of like a plan in place. Two, maybe you're not on a diet. If you're not on a diet, maybe you don't need to act that way. And three, sometimes it's so bombarding, it's so overwhelming. So here are some of my tips when it comes to dealing with all you can eat places. And don't get me wrong, I love all you can eat Korean barbecue. Like that's my go-to. But this is what I do. This is what I would tell people to do in my profession as well. Number one, show up at these places, ready or not, but scan the whole perimeter, meaning your environment. Go and walk down every aisle and see what things are being served. You got your proteins over here, you got your sweets over here, you got your carbs over here. Know what you're dealing with. Because what I fear is that the moment you step in, you pay your money, and then now you have a plate, and then you just keep kind of stacking it on. But did you know they usually put all the expensive stuff towards the back? So then you kind of like plate up on all the cheap stuff like French fries and mashed taters and bread and whatnot. So by the time you get to the end, you're like, oh, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go to my table and just eat this first and then come back. Guess what? You're not gonna have the appetite to eat all the good stuff. So scan the perimeter, walk through the aisles before you actually make this decision. And then finally grab the plate and pick with intentions. Colleen's on a high lean protein regimen. She was set up on this already from day one. She's been on high lean protein for now, I don't know, 2 years, now that she's been with us at our company. I've taught her many of times, like, it's the proteins. It's the proteins. If it's seafood or lean proteins, chicken, whatever else, it's proteins. So she knows now to just pick her proteins when it comes to places like this. And the idea of functional eating versus emotional eating. Are you eating a lot because it's there? Or are you eating a lot because you're truly hungry? Or are you just eating so you can sustain, so you can move on to all the excursions that you're about to sign on and perform and do? Question all these. I mean, it's kind of funny. You look like a schizophrenic person at a all-you-can-eat buffet bar because you're talking to yourself. But that could actually save you a lot of unaccounted for calories or things that you didn't have intention on eating. Second step, or second rule, to me, eat the proteins first. It's always a standard rule, eat the proteins, because when it comes to the ranges of satiety, there is a satiety scale. Different macronutrients causes fullness faster than other macronutrients, and this is the scale. Proteins basically falls under your seafood, your chicken, your red meats, for example, pork loin even. All the meats and all the proteins, and it could be vegetables made of proteins as well, those will actually keep you fuller faster first, and then you touch the complex carbohydrates, which could be your huge salad, followed by the breads, the pasta, the French fries, and the desserts. Always eat those things last, the simple sugars last, because those are the things that will cause a rise in your blood sugar really quickly and jack up your insulin. And when you have an increased bump in your insulin really quickly and it stays there for a long time, you'll end up storing fat. So this is the whole idea. Make your body work for its fuel, meaning eat the proteins. Your body will have to break down the proteins to make it into a sugar for you to actually utilize it. And in a way, it actually increases your metabolism. So hopefully, Colleen, that was the rule number 2 that you followed at your Alaska cruise in the all-you-can-eat buffet line.
It was, absolutely. I didn't gain a pound while we were away
That's awesome.
on the cruise.
That's really good. Now, rule number 3 is eating slowly. This is just behavioral change. It might be trivial to some of you in the audience. You're like, oh, that just sounds kind of silly. But did you know that every time you take a bite, put down your fork, chew, 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 maybe have a conversation, and then pick up your fork again to get another bite, you could actually potentially save yourself up to 150 calories for that one meal. There have been studies that's been done with humans where we extend the eating time from 15 minutes to 30 minutes purely by implementing behavioral change, by putting down a fork and picking it up. And people actually in the long run could actually maintain their weight loss or even lose a little bit because of that. And also it is important because a lot of us do have like a 30-minute lunch break, in the office place, and we get in a car, run to a fast food place, do a drive-through, and we literally eat our lunch probably within 7 to 10 minutes. And then we go back to the workplace. So that kind of eating will always set you up for feeling not satisfied. And then you might find yourself munching on snacks throughout the day because of the fact that you scuffed down this one little meal in a matter of 10 minutes versus 30 minutes. You're not allowing your body to process the food in the stomach to send the message up to the brain to say, hey, look, you're full. So this little behavioral change in itself, it works. Try it. I guarantee you, you'll feel so much more satisfied, and as a result, you actually eat less calories. And of course, the other tip that I find very useful is allowing the server kind of bring out each of the course separately. So don't ever say, oh, bring everything out all at once. Just have them kind of divvy up, bring out the appetizers, the soups, and then the entree, and maybe later the dessert. It does allow you to stretch out the time with the same kind of effect where you're stretching out that processing time. So then you get the message from your stomach to your brain. All right, rule number 4, hydrate. Sometimes you're just thirsty, but guess what? In our brain, when you're thirsty, you might feel like you want a snack, when in reality, you just need to quench that thirst. So drink your water. The current recommendation for just normal minimal like hydration is 2 to 3 liters of water. Now we know that there's 128 ounces of water in a gallon of water. So anywhere between, one tall like smart water bottle to a gallon of water is where you need to be. We lose about 1 liter of liquids or fluid per day just from breathing, talking, walking up and down the street. So if you don't drink at least 1 liter, you're likely dehydrated. And when you're dehydrated, your body tends to give you these signals as if you are hungry, when in reality, you just need hydration. So that's another way to kind of outsmart your body when it comes to thirst versus hunger. Rule number 5, pick the smaller plate. Seriously, there are different variation in sizes of plates at the all-you-can-eat places. Oftentimes they have a salad plate followed by the entree plate or even the dessert plate. If you can just stick with the dessert plate and just use that as your main entree, I guarantee you will be winning on this diet program. And here's why. Psychologically, when we're given a bigger plate, we will make an effort to pack it on. And there has been clinical trials that have shown human behavior is so silly. We will literally eat at the size of the plate that we're given. So, but yet we're probably really full and satisfied, but it doesn't matter. The plate tells us what we need to eat. So therefore, if you notice nowadays in current day restaurant industry, they give you plates like this big and they oftentimes fill it up. And then now we're given this impression as if this is the regular size or normal portion of how much we should eat, when in reality, it's probably 1/3 of the size. So number 1, goes back to sharing. Sharing is very important. And 2, you could literally save up to about 22% of your caloric intake by keeping yourself eating on a 10-inch plate versus a 12-inch plate. And 12-inch is kind of like your classic entree plate. 10 inches is usually a salad plate. But even doing that becomes a little trick where you can actually eat less calories by the end of the meal. Any tips from you, Colleen?
Organically, I went with a smaller plate, but I did not go as small as the dessert plate. So now I have a new tip for the next time.
Yeah, smaller you go. Just
Smaller
tricking
is better.
ourselves. We're
Yeah.
so silly, right? But it works. And of course, my last tip is take your medications with you. If you're on the medication for appetite suppression, continue on that same journey, same path while you're on vacation, because every day it's basically you're trying to live your life and change your lifestyle, right? So being on vacation for a week versus, being at home for the rest of the year is still the same. You want to act out the way you should act out. And if you're on appetite suppressant, perhaps you'll be eating a normal portion versus being not. Now, what is another scary thing is some medication, if you took yourself off, you actually get a rebound of like a raging appetite. So do you want to have a raging appetite while you're on vacation, or do you want to act like a normal person? So that's something to think about as well. And now that we have so many different types of medications out in the marketplace, super important to continue that and not cause any disruption, right? We don't want you to have rebound. We don't want you to feel headaches and whatnot. Now, this is just a little synopsis, a little slide that I threw in because I want you guys to know that there are tools in the toolbox out there for those that are dieting. We have FDA approved medications that are prescribed by medical providers like myself to patients. And we also have compound options created by and made by compound pharmacies too. There are now so many options out there. It's just a matter of, what you want to try to lose what type of weight. And some of them are super convenient. Some of them are like, take it once a week versus most of these, prescribed medications is once a day dosing. But definitely don't stop your medication just because you're on vacation. What we do at our clinic is we give our clients pre-filled syringes if it's an injection, and we make sure that their prescription is filled right before a trip as well. Any comments from you, Colleen, on this?
No, I maintained all of my supplements that I take and medications. I mean, and I'll just be transparent. Over the last 2 years, I've lost, as of this morning, 79 pounds. And so it's every day, right? I'm really being purposeful every single day. And so I am on tirzepatide, and I took it with me. And I've had it this whole sort of 4-week journey that I'm on, and I take it regularly every Sunday to stay on track.
That's perfect. Yeah, and then some of the questions that I have for my clients are like, well, I don't want to bring these little bottles and these needles with me. When in reality, the TSA security,
Oh, they don't even stop it.
they don't stop it, and it's
Yeah, not at
illegal
all.
for them to ask you what they are. So when they
Oh,
see a needle, they're just kind of like, all right, it's fine. As long as there's like a label and it looks like a prescribed medication.
yeah.
Obviously, if it was cocaine, it's not going to get through. All right. So this is really the end of the hour for us. And if there are any chats, put them in now and we'll answer as we go. But I just want to give you a quick little reminder what we do for a living. Obviously, we work in Southern California. This is our company. If you want to Google and find out more about our suite of services, you can find out more here on this website. But we do practice, our bread and butter is weight management, but we now are actually offering services that really fits under what we call metabolic health, which is basically treating you as a whole person and with other condition states like inflammation and even mental health. So suite of services consists of nutrition therapy, prescribed medications, hormone replacement, IV hydration, and body contouring. So we kind of like a one-stop shop doing what we do. We know, this type of client best when it comes to just living a healthier life. So with that, I'm going to leave you with my email in case you need, you have extra questions and whatnot that weren't answered or more clarifications. But otherwise, let's see, Monica, do we have any questions in our chat?
It doesn't look like we have any questions so far.
Good. All right. So for
Yeah.
once, we got done early. Usually I'm like 5 minutes behind. So
Yeah, and I'll be sending an email to everyone with a recording of this webinar in case anyone wants to watch it back or share it with other people who might benefit from it.
thank you very much. Well, thank you everyone for your lunch hour. I appreciate you being here and hopefully I see you again next month.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.